Your question to me earlier, what was the biggest result of the weekend? Before we went down this path, I was going to say, I think it's NC State over North Carolina. And we've talked about it a lot, but it doesn't make it any less of a massive story. The final score was 77-69. First off, did you see these dudes try to kill Turquavion again?
I did. So I did. So I went. I
Every time Turquavion plays North Carolina, they sent him to the hardwood.
I saw there was something going on. I took in some action on Sunday. I brought my boys to nearby Fairfield University, checked a little Jasper's Stags, and I might have a note in this week's court report. That is an unreal
I saw your pictures.
Major facility. That is.
I saw your pictures. It looked great.
It is the real deal. Like. I will not be surprised if we look up in 8 years and Fairfield is like the power in that conference because of how much they have invested in that university. They used to, complete side note, but they used to play in an arena in downtown Bridgeport, on the shore of Bridgeport, and it was just too big. Like it wasn't where they needed to be, and so it was awesome. And my thanks to the folks at Fairfield for being so accommodating with my young guys. Went with my sons. It was our first time I taken both of them to a game. I got a 4-year-old who just wasn't able to go the past couple of years. That was awesome. But as I was watching that game, which came down to literally a free throw to decide whether or not it went to overtime or not, Manhattan got the win over Fairfield. There's your Mac minute here on the pod on a Sunday night. I was streaming because I had genuine interest in the NC State UNC game, and I got to be honest. Now, I was following a little bit of Twitter as well. I thought maybe it was my stream, but I did see what apparently everyone else saw, and that was 1982 level grainy video when they were trying to determine how Turquavion Smith got taken out again in this game. Apparently it was okay in terms of not throwing out. I think it was Nance. You can speak to that more than I can. And I'm going to give you the floor here because Carolina is the bigger story, but I do just want to give State its flowers here off the top because it's going to the tournament. No, it's not a lock yet, but a major win in avoiding the sweep to UNC, owning it here. I picked the Tar Heels. I was wrong. That one's on me. I was wrong. I'm going to own that entirely. But for NC State fans that have really been, looking for something to quench this thirst about making the tournament, they're here. Because in 2020, they were on the bubble. They might have been there. They might not. But you didn't have a sure thing. Last time they were in the field was Keats' first season. It was a one and done, but it was a good debut season. 21-12. They've hit 21 wins now. They're going to win more games probably than any other season since he's been there. They did win 24 the next year, but as you know, with scheduling, it can sometimes be a little bit uneven there. So when UNC still hasn't registered a quad one win and Ohio State has stolen the only one they had and just plummeted, Carolina is going to be the bigger deal. Preseason number one team on the verge of history, but I at least wanted to give Keats and that program the rightful due because the ACC is down, but the Wolfpack are really, really getting it done. Next 2 games against Wake and a Clemson team that we have to get to before we get out of this episode, before wrapping up against Duke. You still have more work to do, but very impressive. I watched those, I think it was 3 consecutive possessions. It was either 3 or 4 where it was boom and boom and boom. The building's on fire and they flipped it on Carolina and it was done. I want to say there was like a minute and a half or 2 minutes to go when they took that 8-point lead and just totally changed the game around. Big time stuff. DJ Burns had an outrageous, I think, bank from the short wing there. So credit to him, credit to Joyner, credit to NC State. You're in position. 1 or 2 more wins should have you in no matter what. Maybe even 1 is your magic number here. I really feel like that's probably the reality. That's what I got. What do you have?
It was loud in Raleigh. Forgive me, I don't recall who was calling the game. Because I was watching it in a hotel room I had my little guys with me and they were bouncing around the walls and iPads blaring. But one of the announcers noted that he had been coming to that arena for 15 years or so and that he had never heard it this loud. And that I don't know if he was at this game, but when I started thinking about all-time great NC State moments, remember that time that dude stormed the court in a wheelchair?
Yes. It's one of the best. Yes. If we got a State fan in the chat here, remind us it probably was Duke. I'm going to guess that's Duke in 2012. And that was a Saturday afternoon game, but that is a classic moment. That's where I think it was something in that realm.
I started laughing so hard, just that memory popping back into my head. Dude stormed the court in a wheelchair and got dumped over.
But he was okay. They actually did like
He was-
feature stuff on him after, and he's good. That's I want to
He's
emphasize
good.
our guy is good. Yes.
I hope he's good. I ain't heard from him in a while. Anyway, the final score was 77-69, and as you know, it means North Carolina is now still stuck with 0 quadrant ones wins. It's actually 0-9 now. It was like it's been fluctuating between 0-8 and 0-9. It appears that at some point over the past couple of days, it went back down to 0-8, and this takes it back to 0-9. Tar Heels are now 6-11 in the first 2 quadrants. Couldn't help but notice Caleb Love, RJ Davis combined 9 of 30 from the field. That's obviously not good enough. And when we talk about North Carolina, we've been talking about them all season. Among the reasons they were preseason number 1 in the AP poll, it was bring back 4 starters from a national championship team and then add Pete Nance. And Pete Nance can be Brady Manick. And it's just, I'm not putting this on Pete Nance, all of it, but he's not Brady Manick. And that's been clear for a while. He was 1 of 2 from 3 in this game. And he's now shooting 28% from 3. Like that's not Brady Manick would never.
It's not on Brady Manick, but I saw this tweeted out, and I wasn't able to watch every possession. NC State had what, 3 turnovers in this game? Like that's also on Carolina's defense for not inducing that. Like there was just real. I'm bringing up the box right here, GP. That's 3 turnovers. 3. So it's as much as that as it is anything with what you're getting to, and I know you know that, but that's rare stuff. 3 turnovers in a game also was a major factor.
Here's the thing, though, with North Carolina. Like, this is crazy to even be in this position. It's February 19th, and you're preseason number 1, and you have 0 quadrant 1 wins. Like, that's insanity. As noted on one of the podcasts last week, there's only 8 teams in the – because Wake Forest at some point gained a quadrant 1 win just because the numbers shifted. So heading into this weekend, there were 8 schools in a power conference without a quadrant 1 win. And it's North Carolina and 7 schools that clearly aren't going to the NCAA tournament. And North Carolina still has a chance. I know it seems wild, but they're not that far from the right side of the bubble. 6-11 in the first 2 quadrants, with an 0-9 record in quadrant 1. So you got 2 losses in quadrant 2, nothing in quadrant 3, nothing in quadrant 4. And the rest of the schedule, like it's equal parts simple and filled with opportunity. What I mean by that is on Wednesday, they're at Notre Dame. I guess nothing on the road is simple, particularly for this team, but you should be able to handle Notre Dame. I mean, Mike Bray had announced he's not going to be the coach anymore in the middle of the season. If you can't beat that team, you don't deserve any of the stuff you're trying to get. After that, you get Virginia at home on Saturday. According to KenPom, be favored in that game, at least based on the numbers right now. Then it's at Florida State. Florida State's terrible, so you should be able to handle that. If you're a legitimate NCAA tournament team, you should be able to handle that. And then the regular season finale inside the Dean Smith Center against Duke. KenPom has the Tar Heels favored in each of the next 4 regular season games. And based on the current net numbers, and as we've illustrated, they can change, and with it, the circumstances change. But based on the current numbers, like right now, as of this minute, if North Carolina were to go 4-0 in these next 4, which again, according to KenPom, they'll be favored in all 4, they would enter the ACC tournament 8-11 in the first 2 quadrants with 2 quadrant 1 wins. That'd be heading into the ACC tournament. So they'd be 3 games below 500 in the first 2 quadrants with no additional losses. For some context, right now, and I think Jerry Palm has to update his bracket maybe Monday morning, but as of Sunday night, the last team in Jerry's bracket is Texas A&M, and they're 2 games above 500 in the first 2 quadrants, but they have 2 quadrant 4 losses, which are like not technically, but they're like double losses. If you have a quadrant 4 loss, it's like a double loss. So North Carolina still has a chance. As bad as they've been all season, and as hopeless as it must seem right now, if you're a Carolina fan, you just watched your team squander a lead and lose to an in-state rival to remain winless in quadrant 1, they can still get to the NCAA tournament fairly reasonably. Do you think they'll do it?
Well, do you? Because I think, did I ask you a week ago or 9 days ago? And you said Kentucky no, UNC yes. Wasn't that your verdict then?
Yeah, and now I would say Kentucky yes. Obviously, Kentucky's won 2 nice games since then. We'll get to that. And I think I would still ever so slightly.
You just can't quit this team.
I would still ever so slightly say North Carolina is going to get there. I think Kentucky, I feel better. This time last week, I felt better about North Carolina than Kentucky. Now I feel better about Kentucky than North Carolina. But I still, if I had to bet, I would bet on North Carolina still getting there somehow, some way.
UNC's last 6 games. Here we go. 1-point loss at home to Pitt. 6-point loss at Duke in an unappealing game for Carolina Duke. 7-point loss that felt like more at Wake. Completely handled Clemson, and that's now looking a lot more like Clemson than Carolina, but 20-point win. You got it. That was a week ago. Handled at Miami earlier in the week. It was an 8-point margin. Handled. And then couldn't keep up down the stretch on Sunday at NC State. 3 of the 5 losses have come on the road, but lost at home to Pitt, a team also fighting for its tournament life. Lost at home to Miami, a team that was just knocking on the door of being a 4 seed on Saturday in the bracket reveal. Carolina, you asked me, and I'm, oh, man. It's got to beat Virginia and Duke in the regular season. I think it's got to go 4-0. If it doesn't do that, if it has a loss anywhere, it doesn't matter where it comes from to me. 3-1, 2-2, and good night. Good night. Okay. 3-1. Work to do in the ACC tournament, and I have not gamed out this damn ACC bracket. Who the hell would want to do that right now? But UNC, is it 8th or 9th in the league? Here's the problem, man. Like, let's say UNC is 8. All right. Somehow it doesn't win. It doesn't go 4-0. It just lands on the 8 line, however it lands there. Like, it's got to play Virginia probably. Like, come on. Unlikely. So right now I am saying 57-43 UNC is not going. I think Carolina's magic number, even though you can't, there's no scientific method to this. I'm just GP's a baseball guy. I'm going to throw a little baseball terminology into him. I think Carolina's got to get minimum 4 wins to get into the tournament. And there are definitely people out there saying, ACC championship game regardless. Now, that's not necessarily true. If it won the Final Four, the regular season, and then won its first in the ACC tournament, I think objectively that's going to be enough at that point. I think so. But I think it is more likely than not that UNC will not get there. And that was not my stance 5 days ago. It wasn't my stance on the pod. We did a drill handoff. And you can just toss your hands up in the air and just be like, this is it. I actually blame the podcast. You know what? Camel fighting dodo birds and Leaky Black. This just runs with the theme all season long. It's our fault. This is on us. Leaky, apologies, Carolina. This is our doing from the start. We brought Leaky on in the preseason. Number 1 team. You see what's gone. Just absolute, what since then. As much as UNC fans want to blame Hubert Davis, blame us.
It's our fault. I'm pretty much with you on this. North Carolina goes 4-0. It will enter the ACC tournament on the right side of the bubble. If it goes anything less than 4-0, it will enter the ACC tournament on the wrong side of the bubble. But 3-1 would still give them a chance to get there. 2-2. Yeah, you're gonna have to. It's
no. That's 2-2, and you got to win the auto bid. I'm almost convinced of it. Doesn't matter how the 2 come. If you get the 2 against Virginia and Duke, but you lose to Florida State and Notre Dame, what are we doing here? So 2-2 is not getting a cut. And I know Nada's completely out on UNC. I don't even blame him for that. But yeah, I don't know. Just
There's no way you saw what you saw over the last 6 games and think that this team has any shot. They're done. You guys don't feel like killing them? I will do it for you. They're done.
This. Just make sure we have this for when we need it. Okay? Because there were moments last season when everybody said they were done too. And I know we're deeper into this. Than we were last season. But I don't know. I can understand why you might think they're done. And you might be right. But 68 team tournament, they ain't that far from it, even right now. They're just not.
People do not you got to put 68 teams in this.
You have to put 68 teams in this thing.
Talk about this.
This is something people don't talk about enough.
These other podcasts out there, they don't know. It just, you don't realize you got to put 68 teams into this thing.
I've got a question from Joel in the YouTube comment that I think is a totally reasonable question. He asked, how do you evaluate league races, how good teams are in leagues with such uneven schedules in these big leagues? And I guess to that, my answer would be, when it comes to league races, I just talk about them as they're presented. It's understood that in the ACC, the Big Ten, the SEC, everybody doesn't play the same schedule. And yeah, some schools are going to have easier schedules than others, and that might actually contribute to who wins the league title and who doesn't. But I don't care about it. If you finish with the best record in your league, you are the league champion, and I label you as such. If you're in first place in your league, I call you the first place team in your league. I don't spend a second trying to qualify it with, well, they've had an easier schedule than this other team. You are in your league what your record says you are as it pertains to where you stand within that league. Broadly speaking, when it comes to evaluating teams, like for the top 25 and 1 for the NCAA tournament selection process, I don't even look at league records. I mean, I don't look at them at all.
Doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant.
Yeah, I like it's why Texas A&M still isn't even close to the top 25 and 1, even though Texas A&M is now 12-2 in the SEC. I saw a quote from Dennis Gates heading into the Missouri Texas A&M game, and he said, "I don't know how you can be second place in the SEC and not ranked." Well, I know how. You start the season 6-5. You lose to Murray State and you lose to Wofford. You take 2 quadrant 4 losses. So from a league perspective, when it comes to a league race, I'm just looking at your league record. I'm just talking about your league record. That's what a league race is. But when it comes to evaluating teams for the NCAA tournament or for the top 25 and 1, or, I'll let Norlander speak for himself, but the Hey 19 power ranking that he does, I'm looking at your entire body of work. I genuinely, right now, in some of these leagues with some of these teams that I have, and I don't even know where they're at in their league. I mean, I mostly do, but I don't pay attention to it. I don't care about it. It has no factor. I'm looking at your total body of work, and that is what the selection committee does as well.
I'll just say this real quick, and then we can move on and talk about all these other teams and games. I don't know if there are many things that coaches and players should care about this. You want to win your league, but between like media and coaches, we just diverge so greatly on it. Winning a conference championship is a major thing. I'm not dismissing that entirely, but for the purposes of how we talk about teams and how they're playing, like, we can acknowledge that kind of stuff, but it just doesn't mean as much to us because we're not invested in that. And fans, I understand fans will care about a league race as well, but particularly if we're talking about a team that's between 3rd and 5th in a conference, it just doesn't matter to us.